All right, here we go. Another joint podcast with Chris Hoke, Social Media Cowboys, and
Jerry Snyder with All In Health and Wellness and Lunar Juice Bar.
all right. So he's a health nut.
Yep.
I'm just a nut. And if you know us, some of you may know, some of you that might catch these podcasts and don't know us, a lot of our friends watch these, but to catch you up, so my significant other had a little issue with her liver.
Right.
She had cirrhosis of the liver, and she had to have a liver transplant. So she got a liver transplant on February 29th. So as of this taping, is March 17th. She's 17 days post-op from liver transplant. Well, Jerry was there with us through all the stuff pre-op, trying to keep her healthy.
Right.
At one point, we were doing our best to try and just make her healthy and basically just stop the damage, and then and we were even looking at things to try and reverse it and every other thing we could look at. But at the end of the day, basically just make her healthy, and you know, no one wants to ever end up with a transplant. So our goal was to just fix her.
Exactly.
Easiest way to put it. But at some point, there just was a point where that just wasn't possible, and her liver just had too little left of it, and she had to get the transplant. So with all the corona stuff going around, and with her just going to the transplant, we thought it was maybe a good idea to do some joint podcasts so that many more people could hear them.
Right.
We did one just before this on the corona, so now we're going to talk about her liver transplant, and a lot of things in this liver transplant podcast will relate to corona. So keep listening; it won't be just about the transplant stuff. But the particular subject I want to go over with you, and we may even do one with a lawyer. Where the three of us, meaning you, me, Jerry, and a lawyer, sit down and talk about this and look at the legal aspect of it. And I think you would find it really interesting to hear his take on the legal aspect, because you like all aspects of the health, even the legal aspects of what the hospitals go through. You find interesting, and it's very important. I found it the hard way. So here's the short version, so I can set you guys up for this. She had two battles. I didn't realize this other battle was coming, but when we went to the ER three Mondays before the 29th, she basically was starting to lose consciousness. She was basically what's called obtunded. It's another way of saying unconscious. There's a reason why it's a technical difference between obtunded and unconscious, but for a layman's aspect or perspective, rather, she was unconscious, and so I had to rush her to the ER. Very quickly. We knew we had a medical fight because she needed a transplant. Her blood numbers were so low. The doctor's staff was convinced that she was bleeding internally. I felt that was not the case. She had shown no signs of bleeding internally. Thank God I was pretty well versed and educated myself on liver and cirrhosis and all this stuff. So I knew what to look for. So we had a medical issue where we needed to make sure that she was not bleeding internally, that what she was going through was something else, and then get her to a transplant team. What I didn't see coming was the legal fight. What happened is, as part of the setup for you guys, basically she had signed a directive. Basically, if you reach hers and my interpretation, I think most people's interpretation of the directive is, if I end up brain dead, you can pull the plug. Let me just die instead of just being a vegetable and just rotting in a bed with bed sores and everything else. Just pull the plug. That's why she signed the directive.
Right.
Unfortunately, our understanding did not match the understanding of the doctors. At first, it was a couple of residents. That's another thing is, I'm not so sure we should have residents making life or death decisions. Right. But that might be a whole other show unto itself. Our interpretation of the directive was like this: if she's brain dead, you can pull the plug. If her body's alive and her brain's dead, pull the plug. Their interpretation was much, much, much larger. There's the camera, much larger, because she needed the tube of the nose to deliver medicine, and she had terminal illness. They deemed that they could not take those measures anymore, because she was going to die anyway.
Right. She crossed the line.
They crossed the line. So I had to lawyer up. this all happened in minutes. This, I'm telling you this casually. You have to realize this was like a movie. This was like a medical drama movie. This all happened in minutes. Had to lawyer up and basically make the argument on the fly that because she could be a transplant recipient, you can't list her as being terminal because there are things that can be done to make her live a long, normal life.
Right.
And therefore, she should be kept at full code. Now, remember this term, full code. If you guys want to live, remember full code. If you end up in the hospital with your kid, yourself, your parent, full code. You always want to be full code. They didn't see her as being full code.
Right.
Meaning that they can use all life-sustaining measures to save her. I had to basically get a second opinion. That doctor said, well, it's not conclusive that she's bleeding internally. There could be other things. Let's send her to another hospital. And then luckily there was a department head there that day, and I made my case to, and they said, look, she's not bleeding internally. She's never shown signs of bleeding internally. We believe this is something else. If you can get her over this hump, she's got every reason to be a liver transplant recipient. And he agreed with me. So the second opinion staff doctor and then the department head agreed with me to send her to Dallas. And then that night, at Dallas, I had to make the argument again that she should be full code. She should be full code.
Right.
I started picking on the language here by this point. She's full code. She's full code. And every nurse, everybody came in the room. She's full code. She's full code. I told everybody would listen. Yeah. Then that night, the doctor that made the rounds in the middle of the night saved her life and determined she had an infection and was not bleeding internally. And then they started her on antibiotics, and then she was able to stabilize. And then, she eventually got the transplant, and here we are today.
Right.
So, feel free to go where you ever want to go with this. The main thing I wanted to get to you is and talk to you about is these directives. What is going on with these hospitals with these directives? I feel like I had to fight a fight that I shouldn't have to have fought.
Right.
We did all the things. We had medical power of attorney for me. We had power of attorney. We had all the things we needed. Yet I still had to fight a fight to keep her alive.
Right.
I felt like that was an undue burden.
Right.
Do you have some thoughts on this or experience with this?
Well, and this is where it, for people that are not thinking liver transplant, but like how they can relate it to the news coming out of Italy with the coronavirus.
Yeah.
And just to preface that, Italy has a much higher population of elderly people, and they have fewer hospital. The hospital system's not as extensive as ours is.
Yeah.
They have fewer hospital beds, and so they're making really critical decisions on the fly.
Yeah.
But what happens is, and part of it is, sort of a Pavlov's dog. You get trained a certain way. And okay, well, when you see this sign, this is going to happen no matter what. Well, when you see this sign, really what happens is like 80% of the time this happens.
Right.
Or 85% of the time this happens. But, there's very few things that are clear cut. Once this happens, this is going to happen.
Yeah.
When it comes to your health or when it comes to medical, because there's so many pieces of the puzzle of what's going on. And to relate, one of the things is that y'all kept going to the doctor as this was going on for months, and every time you came back, the first thing I asked you, or one of the first things I asked you was, what did they say about her kidneys?
Yeah.
I was like, what? And they said, no, the kidneys are fine. I'm like, then something else is going on.
Right.
Because one of the signs, the liver goes bad, the kidneys have to pick up the pace, and the kidneys are eventually going to start suffering.
And not to just keep your train of thought, but I'll just interject one thing. When we ended up at Dallas at Baylor, the second hospital, when that liver team got a hold of her, excuse me, got choked up. When that liver team got a hold of her and they started doing their things, one of the first things they saw, her potassium was through the roof.
Yeah.
And so her kidneys were starting to fail. So part of the infection and that episode she'd have, and part of her being obtunded, was her body was so septic.
Right.
Because her kidneys were starting to fail. There was talk at one point that she might need a double transplant of liver and kidney.
Yeah.
Now, thankfully, her body responded well, even though she wasn't conscious and mentally with us and awake. Her body responded very well, and that flushed all out.
Right.
And when they finally got her to pooing and peeing, all that started coming out. But you hit the head of the nose. You were ahead of them.
Right.
because that didn't become an issue until that point.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And that's one of the things that so the decisions they're making in Italy right now, and it's making headlines and it's scaring the heck out of people, is that they're saying, well, if you're over this age, we're not treating you.
Yeah.
Because we only have so many beds, and sorry, you've already lived a life, basically.
Yeah.
And that's sort of where they are with transplants, and what y'all went through is like the doctors were looking at it and going, or whoever's making a decision, interns or residents or whoever, looking at it and going, well, statistically, you fall into this category, and boom, 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 it's going to happen. So we're not going to deal with it.
Yeah.
Because of either, they were looking at it from a cost standpoint or a time standpoint or and so they have to weigh those decisions.
Sure.
And that's something they have to live with, obviously, when they make those decisions. But there is that point, and it's with any disease. It's there's that point of when do you stop CPR? When do you stop?
Yeah.
If you're in heart surgery, when do you stop if the heart stops responding? When do you stop all these measures?
Right.
And that's what the indicators that Trish showed. They were just saying, well, there may be a needle in a haystack, but and it could be not necessarily that they're. I don't want to say protocol that they're following.
Yeah.
But they just hadn't seen it. They hadn't seen it themselves go to this person could recover because of X, Y, and Z.
And that's where advocacy. See, I went when she lost consciousness and I took her to the ER. I had no idea this fight was ahead of me.
Right.
In a lot of ways, Jerry, I'm a different person today than I was
I know
the guy that drove her to the ER.
Yeah.
And the guy today are not the same person.
Yeah.
My brain's been rewired. I don't know if I might even act different for all I know.
Yep.
But the thing that got me was I didn't realize advocacy was this crucial and this important. And my interpretation of advocacy, what I experienced was basically what you're talking about is you have a patient and you have a doctor and you have all of these percentages and defaults and protocols and whatever else that they depend on. And the advocate has to be, in some ways, a salesman that knows that patient's medical history and can guide them like, hey, I know the book says they fall into the 2/3, but because of X, Y, and Z, she's 1/3. And then let me say something else that I'm going to go against the mainstream here. I might even go against you. I don't know. But all these medical professionals that tell you don't read the internet, screw them. Read the internet. Because I can't tell you how many things I read online saved her life.
Right.
Is there garbage online? Yes.
Absolutely.
There's a million pieces of garbage online. But if you're reasonably intelligent, you can kind of discern. If it's from joeblow.com and it's an article there, maybe not take it so seriously. But if it's from the National Institutes of Health, give that a little more credence.
Right.
And so be mindful of where you're reading it.
Well, and that's one of the things I actually told you to do was like, here's the sites that you should go look at.
Yeah.
Like, stay off the other stuff. Don't go here. Don't go there. But these are the guys that are not following just the you got it. So in 3 months you're going to have this happen, and in 2 months you're going to have this happen, and in 1 month you're going to have this happen, and then you're going to have a funeral.
Yeah.
And it's the where's the information that's going?
Yeah.
If it's this, you can recover, and if it's this, you can regenerate. And if it's this, you can do this.
Yeah.
So
in Texas we have some conflicting traits as Texans a lot of times. Well, one is we're very independent and self-assured, but on the other hand, we're also polite and gracious. And one of the things that I saw myself was when the residents first gave me the news, like, hey man, I know it's tough to hear, but she signed the directive, we can't do anything. Yeah. My first reaction was, well, I guess if that's it. Yeah. And then I actually went downstairs. I can't remember what I went downstairs for. I don't remember why I went downstairs. That's when my brain started kicked in gear. And that's when I called the lawyer. Right. And the lawyer even told us, and we'll do when things calm down and we can go and meet Matthew will do a three-person podcast. But anyway, the one of the things he said on the phone call was, "Look, you're not going to hurt these guys' feelings if you ask for a second opinion. He says, just ask for the second opinion."
Yep.
And when I did, that's when I got a staff doctor, and that started turning things all around.
Yeah.
But so in terms of advocacy, know your patient. So if it's your spouse, mom, whatever, kid, know their case history, know what they're feeling, know what they've gone through, keep a journal if that helps you, of their doctor's visits and things like that. Do those type of things to like journal it, and then like don't be shy. Ask for second opinions. If the doctor gets mad, I mean, F him. I mean, they either die and you can keep them happy and your person die, or you can offend them for like 10 minutes.
Right. Yeah. And they're going to move on.
Keep your person alive.
Yeah.
You know.
And if they're a good doctor, not only will they not get offended if you ask for a second opinion, if the second opinion comes back and it contradicts what they did, and actually leads to a positive outcome, well, now that doctor's learned something.
Yeah.
You know, and so, you know, that's going to change.
I hope to God those residents learned.
Yeah. I guarantee you they did. Now they're going to go back and go, oh, but remember that one lady?
It wasn't bleeding.
Everybody else has done, but remember that one lady?
Yeah.
You know, and they'll be 60 years old, and they're still going to have that. Remember that one lady?
So how many people got saved?
Exactly.
In the course of their practice because we asked for that second opinion that one time.
Yep.
You know, and
it does come from, you know, it doctors do specialize, and so there is definite. While you may say, "Oh, but my doctor's so old; he's not up on the times. He doesn't know all the new stuff coming out and all this," but that experience factor is huge as well.
Yeah.
So it's great to have a doctor who's, you know, recently out of school because they've got all the recent technology and all of the updates and, you know, all the journals and everything. They know it real fresh.
Yeah.
But there's something about that 30-year-old doctor or that's been in practice for 30 years.
Yeah. That 60-year-old guy.
That 60-year-old guy or girl that just like
for our generation, if they could still smoke at the hospital when they started, that's the guy you want.
That's the guy that you're going to go and you're going to be like, I got this strange. I mean, there was a time back, it was before my wife and I were married, so this is 21 years ago, that I got sick. I got super dehydrated and was still trying to run through it because I'm an athlete and I'm crazy. And just massive diarrhea. Just like,
really?
And anything, I mean, as soon as it went in, it came out.
Wow.
And, I mean, it was really bad. And so she took me to the emergency room at one of the hospitals in San Antonio. And it was early on a Tuesday morning or something.
Yeah.
So it was pretty dead in the emergency room. And the doctor came over. And he looked like one of the. He was a Vietnam doctor. He was a doctor in Vietnam, and so he looked like one of those guys that, you know, would be smoking on his. And I was at first seen by 2 residents, and then they brought the doctor over, and they were like, they kept saying, "Well, I need you to pee or go," and I was like, "I can't. I just went when I can't." Yeah. And they said, "Okay, well, we're gonna hook you up to an IV," and I took that bag of IV down in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And they said, "Wow, we're gonna hook you up to another one, 15 minutes and down." And they were like, and I went to the bathroom and everything was, and the doctor goes, "Opium, give him some opium." And I was like, "What?" And a couple drops of opium stopped me right up. And then they put 2 more bags in, and those held, and I was able to go to the bathroom, and everything was like normal. I wasn't able to poop, but I was able to pee. Everything was normal again. And he was like, "Yep, see ya." And like the residents were in college, like still in medical school, you know, and they're
mind
like,
blown,
they're trying all this stuff, you know, and they're like, and he just goes, "Yep, opium." And I was like, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, dysentery. Guess what we did in Vietnam?" And I was like, there you go. So it's the experienced doctor that's going to have those little things that happen, and that's what happened with you. You get a second opinion. Typically, your second opinion is going to be the elder doctor that's been there a long time. You know.
Not to steal your thunder, but let me jump in on one thing. It is great. My eyes have been open. it is great that we have different cultures now in our
Right.
medical thing. It's like we don't realize how lucky we are. So if you get a Indian or a Nigerian or a Middle Easterner or
Yeah.
whatever, Asian,
Yep.
be thankful for that different perspective because the guy who saved the medical professional that turned it all around, like in terms of like her actual like health, not just the administrative passing her to the other hospital thing,
Right.
but like actual health care turnaround, was this guy. And I'm gonna tell you the story because it only lasted a minute, so it's a short
Right.
story. He walked in. He's wearing just khakis and like a blue button up. He didn't have the white thing on, none of that stuff.
Right.
He's got to go around this thing. He's got this gnarly Middle Easterner, like, I'm just gonna say it because I don't know how else to say it, but by traditional American standards, he looked like a terrorist.
Right.
But
Right.
you envision is like that's what he looked like.
Yeah.
With the beard and the hair and all that stuff. And he comes in there, and I say terrorist for a reason because I want you to realize how I changed. So he walks in there, and he's like, Patricia, slaps his hand, Patricia. He picks up her feet, and he tickles her foot or something, and her foot reacted. He's like, okay, Patricia, slaps, Patricia. He picks up her hands, they fall flat. Picks her other hand, falls flat. He goes, ah. He goes, and he literally did that. He goes, ah, like that. And I was like, oh, what does that mean? What did the ah mean?
Right.
And he looks at me, he goes, so what happened? So I told him the story. It's a long, involved story. I told him as fast as I could. And he says, was there blood in her stool? No. Has she ever been scoped? I said, no. She said, is there any ever bleeding? I was like, no. He goes, she got an infection.
Yeah.
And he told the nurse, started to do this, and he said medical jargon to the nurse guy.
Right.
And the nurse went, okay. And then he's gone.
Yeah.
And I said, what the hell just happened? I looked at the ICU nurse, and I'm like, what the hell just happened? He goes, I said, was that real? Did that really just happen?
Yeah.
He goes, the ICU nurse, he goes, dude, he is so smart.
Yeah.
He goes, I can't keep up with him. I've said in his talks, and I can't keep up with him. He's so smart.
Right.
And I told you that I used the description of terrorist for a reason, because I realized I didn't think in the moment because this all happened so fast. It took some reflection the next day after that.
Right.
All the prejudices and all of the stereotypes, like they do all of us, including myself, such a disservice.
Right.
The guy that saved Trish's life was a Middle Eastern. I'm sure he's Muslim in his own faith.
Right.
I don't know that. I just assume that. But like everything that like since post 9/11 we've been taught to fear.
Right.
That's who saved her.
Yeah. Yep.
And it's not even debatable. It's a fact.
Yeah.
That's who saved her.
Yeah. No, I remember when you called me and you were like, dude, this is it's an infection. And she's getting better because they're starting to treat her. And I'm like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, it's because the way she was reacting was not just cirrhosis driven.
Yeah, she had an infection. We don't know. And they talked about it, as things calmed down, she stabilized, she became conscious. We talked about, they did a test of the fluid. They couldn't find any active cultures.
Right.
They said sometimes with the liver, you just get infection and you don't know what it is. You don't know where it come from.
Right.
It's just, and and even the liver team. Now, let me say this. I don't want the show to go on without me saying this. When we got to the transplant team, and a doctor on the transplant team even told us this, with our modern medical system, the highest level there is our transplants.
Right.
We haven't reached the point where we can generate new organs.
Right.
That would be the only next step.
Yeah.
Logical. So the highest medical attention you receive is to receive a transplant.
Right.
When she got on the transplant team, and I've used this analogy before, it was like they were the special forces.
Right.
Like the Green Berets or the Navy SEALs, and all the other medical paraprofessionals were like, just like cops or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Mall security.
Well, I won't say don't be that disparaging, but yeah. There's a giant leap.
Yeah.
Yeah, the professional versus elite.
Right.
The transplant team had its own financial people that only worked with transplant finances.
Yep.
They had their own pharmacists, their own lab, everything.
Yeah.
So she got in the care of the elite, and when she got in their care, I could start to kind of like, take a breath, calm down. When I went to go eat at the cafeteria, I didn't feel like I had to rush up there and just like shove it in my face and run back out there so I didn't miss anything. And like they, and I'm saying all this to say, where you receive. We all want to stay healthy. We all want to stay healthy naturally.
Sure.
And if you have a healthy body, you need to do Jerry's juices and the all-in program and stuff like that to stay healthy. But if God forbid the time comes you need a medical system, the point I'm trying to make is where you go matters.
Right.
Not every city is created equal.
Right.
Not every hospital is created
Yep.
equal. And I'm not going to disparage anybody on this podcast.
Right.
But we were very fortunate that she got to Baylor Medical in Dallas and then UT Southwestern in Dallas.
Yeah.
They just could do things that can't be done in a smaller town like Waco.
Right. Right.
So all that matters.
And that's one of the things that it's the other thing you have to look at when it comes to like the coronavirus and the stuff that's going on with that, or any illness that you have or issue that you have is, one of the things that you have to look at is, well, this country's response to it, or this city's response, or this state's response to this issue. Well, how are they in regards to just overall health concerns? How are they in regards to how they treat people? Like where do they rank internationally? Where do they rank, in the state? Where, MD Anderson in Houston.
Yeah.
People all want to go to MD Anderson for cancer. Why? Well, because they have the best.
Right.
Like,
it's my sister.
Why do you want to go to the Mayo Clinic? Because they're the best.
Right.
And so are you going to get the same cancer treatment at MD Anderson that you would at Podunk Hospital in, the outskirts of the state that you live in?
Yeah.
Highly unlikely that you'll get the same treatment unless that hospital is fortunate enough to have a retired doc who
something like that
is like beyond brains, as far as smarts. And so it's, so no, it definitely does have, you have to know if you get a serious issue such as cirrhosis or something that's leading to like, my only option is a transplant, then it's not just, let me go see my normal doctor, but it's go see my normal doctor and say, who's the best?
Yeah, who do you recommend?
Who's the best?
Yeah.
Not like, okay, who's the best in town?
Yeah.
Who's the best?
Yeah.
And if you can afford that, go there. If you can't, well then who's the next best?
Yeah.
And work your way down the list. And because, if you live in Montana and the best is in Orlando and it's going to take you 3 weeks, you may not be able to afford that. So who's the best in Montana? But start with who's the best period and work your way down in those situations.
You're a competitor. You're an athlete.
Yep.
And you physically compete. You're trying to beat your last mile. You're trying to beat the other guy's mile, etc. Who's the marathon guy? The famous one, Usain Bolt.
Kipchoge. Usain Bolt's 100 meters.
100 meters. Okay.
Yeah.
So like you probably know you can't beat him.
Right.
But you want to.
Oh yeah.
And you try to, and you think about it, and you're like whatever. And so like I've always been competitive more mentally and just like figuring out things and stuff like that. I like hard solutions.
Right.
I like hard problems that I have to figure out a solution. Okay.
Yeah.
My mind keeps turning off trying to figure it out. And where I'm going with this is like when we were advocating for her, I kept trying to figure out what I needed to do.
Yeah.
And I kept trying to figure out who to talk to. I learned their language on the fly.
Right.
Like I didn't know what full code meant until I had to.
Right.
Now I'll never forget full code. Here we go. Full code. If you go to the hospital, full code. I didn't know what the hell that meant.
Yeah.
In mid-February.
Right.
Like full code. Well, I don't know. What does that mean? And we're competitive and we're smart and we both are entrepreneurial and things like that. What happens to the people that don't have these advantages?
Right.
Don't have the mindset, or they're older, or they're just maybe not as sharp.
Yeah.
Are they dying because they weren't picking up this stuff? And that bothers me. It bothers me a lot. I've got some friends that they're friends, but I'm not trying to be egotistical. I'm just smarter than them.
Yeah.
And this was hard for me.
Yeah.
So, you know what I'm saying?
Well, and it's there. So there's two things to remember with that, and not to downplay or bash, either one of this. But the first thing to remember is that they call it a practice for a reason. Physicians are in a practice, and they call it a practice for a reason because they're trying to always get better in their field. so that's there for a reason. But the other reason is that it is a hospital system.
Yeah.
They have a system in place. So just like your computer, or the internet or Facebook's logarithms, and they have a system in place, and just like Facebook changes logarithms, and I know you're always trying to be like, oh my God, they changed it again.
Every
now
day.
I gotta change everything.
Every month for sure. There's
Right.
a change that we have to deal with.
Yeah, and so that's the same thing the hospitals are going through with even diseases that we've known for years, like cirrhosis, is that every month there's a change.
Yeah.
And so it's who sees the change first, but then it's got to trickle down to everybody else.
Yeah.
And so how fast can we trickle it down to everybody else?
Yeah.
And some hospital systems are better than others at that.
Yeah.
But those are the two things that I think people have to remember. And so it's if you're not in a progressive hospital system, then I'm not saying you're gonna die just like because something happens and it's like, oh, I got bad medical care, so I'm gonna die.
Yeah.
But are you going to be at the optimal health? Are you going to be able to get? It might be tough.
Yeah.
It might be tough to recover as quick, and so that's why you hear stories of, and even with like athletic injuries and surgeries, you hear, well, this guy came back from his injury and surgery in 6 weeks. Why is it taking me 12 months?
Right.
And it's like, well, did you have the progressive athletic trainer? Did you have the progressive physical therapist? Did you have the person who was knowledgeable about all these things? Or did you have the resident that was like, I don't know, so we're going to fall into this category and basically prepare yourself.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot about where you are, but there's also a lot about it, not necessarily having to be intelligent, but having to have the wherewithal of asking the question, are you sure that's all?
Yeah.
Are you sure that's all that can be done?
Yeah.
There's nothing else.
And that's, we got to wrap this up. The last thing I'll say is, that was one of the problems I had with the whole experience was I kind of use it like as a, you have a highway and you'll have about 4 lanes, sometimes 5 lanes.
Right.
And the 5 lanes on the other way, so 10 lanes. And you get to, like I say, a 4-lane highway and there's 1, 2, and 3. And to me, the doctors will easily go, well, we can do 1, 2, or 3.
Right.
And me sitting there going like, is there a 4th one?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, this 1, 2, and 3 don't work. They're not going to work here.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, is there a 4th lane? And they'll think about it and they'll go, yeah, there is a 4th lane.
Yeah.
And then we go on that. And I went through that multiple times in her days of being in the hospital. And I got really frustrated. Baylor, Baylor being Baylor Baptist, very religious oriented. I saw more chaplains than I really.
Right.
They actually came by so often. I told the nurses like, man, I don't know what else to tell these chaplains. I mean,
yeah.
I've got a prayer group. I'm faithful.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know what they all like. I said, I think they want me to cry. They're gonna leave until they see me cry. And I wasn't.
Right.
I wasn't that way. I wasn't really a cry.
Yeah.
It wasn't that way. It was all mental. It wasn't emotional. We were working a problem when she was in the hospital. So then the lanes on the highway, they pick it. And I told the chaplains, that's why I went with the chaplains. Yeah. The chaplains, I was like, why am I having to just to boost them to get to that 4th lane? And every chaplain was like, I don't know. There's sort of, and they kind of answer like you do. Well, they've got certain protocols. Right. And I'm like, well, maybe make the 4th option part of the protocol.
Right. Yep.
Like why did I that's the question I've had, and it's probably I'll have the rest of my life. Why did I have to advocate so hard? Why did I have to force them and sell them and hustle? And I took every resource I had. Lawyer friend, my own salesman manipulation skills, you name it. Yeah. All went into effect to get them to always look for that other option. Yeah. Why? Why wasn't the other option just there and used? Right.
Well, and to go to your highway lanes, like, because we've all seen this. We've all been on an interstate or a big highway, and there's a wreck in front of us. Yeah. And we realize, like, oh, we passed the exit to get off. Now we're stuck. Yeah. And we're going to be sitting here for, an hour or 2 hours or whatever because it's stretched over multiple lanes of the interstate. Yeah. And sometimes you sit there and wait. Yeah. But other times, the police officers working the accident go, hey, we can put people on the shoulder. Come on down the shoulder.
Yeah.
Drive on the, slow, but drive on down the shoulder,
Yeah.
and so it's that, like, or, the ones that say, hey, if you back up, go in reverse a little bit, then you can take the exit, you can get off, and you'll be fine. And so it's, it's just how some people are wired. Is some people are wired to, nope, this is the way it's supposed to be done. This is the way it was taught to me, and this is the way it's going to be done. Whereas other people, and it's that out of the box.
Yeah.
It's that, and we get that as entrepreneurs because it's, hey, curveball came out of the box. What do we do? How do we address it?
Yeah.
How do we move on?
Yeah.
And for me, like, coronavirus came. Okay, well, how do I address that? How do I move on with my business and be able to sustain? And so, and so one of the big things I've done is like, hey, you know what? I got a book out there. Let's promote the heck out of that because people all over the place can buy that.
Well, plus you have a health. Luna Juice is a health product.
Right.
It's gonna make them be better.
Right.
So you just embrace the virus and
Exactly.
say, all right, if you want to help, staying healthy.
There you go.
This is way better than McDonald's Big Mac and fries.
Exactly.
Keep you healthy.
Yep.
All right. Well, we need to wrap this one up because I have
Yeah.
to be somewhere in just a few minutes. But I think that we might do another joint podcast, like with the lawyer. I would love to have you and myself, and then the lawyer actually talk about the actual legal thought, because he also worked at Scott and White for some time, so he has insight in the medical thing too.
Right.
That's a good podcast. We'll work on putting that one together.
Yeah.
But for now, to get healthy, they can.
allinhealthandwellness.com. Or if you're local, come by lunajuicebar.com, or we can deliver.
Yeah. And the stuff is good.
Yep.
It's good. It tastes good.
It does.
That gets lost in the shuffle here.
Yeah.
We always talk about the healthy stuff and stuff like that.
Right.
It actually tastes good.
Yep.
I mean, like Trish.
Well, I mean, just yesterday, my neighbor was like, "Hey, I want to help y'all and support y'all. Can you bring me?" And she's 72, widow, and was like, and she just, she didn't know. She doesn't. She's never been to it before. She's not into the health stuff, and she just doesn't know the trendy things and all that.
Yeah.
So she simply asked for apple juice, and I
Yeah.
said, "Well, we don't just do apple juice. Everything's a combination of stuff."
Sure.
And she said, "Okay, well, bring me something sweet that you think I would like. That's just good natural sweetness." And so I brought her one, and I said, "Okay, well, here you go. It's 2 servings. It's it's how much it is and all that." Then we saw her last night as we were on our walk around the neighborhood, and she was like, "That was so good. I was surprised." And I'm like, which is strange, because I don't understand why you would think that why would we sell something that didn't taste good? Who's going to buy that? But so it's strange.
It tastes good. It is good for you.
Yep.
All right, and then Social Media Cowboys, socialmediacowboys.com for all your online marketing needs, social media management, websites, and all that kind of good stuff, and podcasts.
Yeah.
That's one thing I haven't figured out. We do podcasts together. I haven't really monetized it yet to do other people's podcasts.
Right.
I guess it's something we'll try and knock. When all this craziness, when I get done with the corona and the Trish is sort of like normal and kind of has her on her new normal is going to be.
Right.
Maybe we'll look into making podcasts for pay.
Exactly.
Pay to play
Exactly.
podcasts. So. All right, guys.
All right. Thank y'all.